Welcome everyone to episode 51 of the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor, and my guest today is someone who I met many years ago. And in order to give the right amount of context to this, I want to tell you about one of my favorite recurring stories that I continually tell people that I have for years. It was October of 2011, and I was at work one day. And I saw that there was a contest on the local radio station, which was 102.5 The Bone in Tampa. And I was on the website listening to I think the Bubba the Love Sponge morning show or whatever they had on at the time. And I saw that there was an advertisement. There was a contest to get on the first ever KISS Cruise. Now, anyone who knows me knows what a crazy KISS fan I am. And this was the first year that they had been doing it, and they've been doing it every year since then. But 2011 was the inaugural, it was the maiden voyage, if you will, of the KISS Cruise. And so I saw this on the radio station's website. I've never won contests or anything like that, so I figured, well, what have I got to lose? This is kind of cool. I would love to go on it. Don't know if I'll be able to afford it necessarily, but let me just see what I can do. So I click on the ad, I enter in my information, not thinking that it's going to amount to anything. Well, sure enough, I get a call from the radio station. Is this Jack Connor? Yes it is. You and a friend have won, free tickets to the KISS Cruise. It leaves next week out of Miami. All you got to do is get down there and get your tickets, and you're in. I was completely blown away. I was telling people that I was trying to tell this guy, I'm like, dude, I'm 27, I'm a musician, and those guys are one of the reasons why I do this. So, you picked the right guy. Shout out to John LaFrance, aka Husky John, over at, he was working it for 102.5 at the time. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, but thank you, John, for that. And so I ended up calling up my buddy Scott, and we drove down to Miami from Tampa, and for the next 4 days we were on this cruise. I think it was a Carnival Cruise Line, down to, it came down to Nassau in the Bahamas. It also stopped on a private island as well. And it was one of the most surreal experiences of my life, because we were going there, and there were, this was the first ever KISS Cruise, so there were fans there from, I want to say, about 36 countries all over the world, and KISS has one of the most passionate fan bases that you're ever going to find. So we were there against, all these KISS, KISS fanatics from all over the world. Not to mention there were a lot of other great bands, including one of my other favorite bands, Skid Row, was on there. So that was even a bigger bonus for me, because I'm a huge Skid Row fan. So I got to meet the guys from Skid Row when I was on the ship, and there was one of my favorite comedians, Craig Gass, was on there. He's known for doing the Gene Simmons impression on Howard Stern, and he's also on Family Guy, so, a lot of great entertainment, and just the whole time, me and Scott are, looking at each other, dude, we're on here for free. What is going on? This is crazy. and the band I was in at the time, Impatient Nation, I must have taken a spool of 50 CDs. I was just burning CDs left and right, handing it out to everyone I could find, oh my God, is Doc McGee over there? I've got to hand it to him. And just, going around as much as I can. My buddy Scott, I drove this poor guy crazy. I know I did. But I couldn't help it. It was such an incredible opportunity. How many times am I going to get to do this in my life? This is amazing. And yes, I got a photo with the band. Everybody did. And it's right there on my Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. It's all there. You'll see me smiling like a 9-year-old girl at a One Direction concert. Or whoever the hot, boy band is nowadays. The point is that I was really excited about it, and it was crazy, and it's something I'll be able to tell for the rest of my life. Now, getting all that aside, in addition to some of the bigger name bands like KISS and Skid Row and some of the other acts on there were a few younger bands, that few sort of unknowns, up and coming artists. Some from Atlanta, which was where the company Sixth Man that produced the cruise came from. So there were some up and coming bands, a variety of different acts there, and one band in particular was from Toronto, Ontario, and I managed to find them, and I was immediately impressed by their sound. it was sort of, I guess if I had to describe it, more of like a mixture of like U2 meets the Killers. Very, a little more alternative, but still very heavy, very keyboard friendly, but very melodic. I was really impressed by this band. They were called The Envy. And apparently, at the time, Gene Simmons was trying to start up his own label again, Simmons Records, which he had kind of dabbled with in the late 80s. I think that's how he discovered Tommy Thayer, who's the current KISS guitarist. But long story short, Gene was looking into producing different bands. And for a particular reason, he was looking at bands from Canada, which I thought was a really interesting technique. Obviously, Toronto has such a rich musical history, which maybe not as many people here in the States know about, but a lot of great music has come from that city. I could go on and on lists like the Guess Who, Triumph, and then these three guys, Geddy, Alex, and Neil. Maybe you've heard of them, I don't know. But yeah, a lot of great bands have come from there. So I was really interested to learn more about this new band, and I managed to meet their guitarist, who I managed to meet him while I was on the ship, exchanged my CD, and talked to him for a little bit. He was a really cool guy, and as it turns out, he is my guest today after all these years. I managed to track this guy down on social media because, I don't know what it was, but I've had their CD for years, and I've been listening to the music, and I was just curious. I'm like, man, I wonder whatever became of those guys. And so I just kind of did a little digging around, and so I managed to find our guest today. So please welcome to the Phoenix Report, Steve Mastroianni, aka VØID.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. And just even hearing you talk about some of those things just bring back so many awesome memories for sure. That cruise was epic.
I'm sure. Now, VØID, I know, because I've been curious about the band's history. I guess I want to take it back from the beginning. When did the Envy first get together? And, just when did everything start? I'm sure you probably had a history before that, but I definitely want to focus on this band in particular, how you guys came about. Were you all from the Toronto area?
Yeah, so actually, this band, and this happens to some bands where this band was each of our, well, at least I guess myself and the singers, like 60th band that we've ever played with. And what happens a lot of times is that the other 60 that kind of failed so much, you've learned so many lessons that the new band that you start from scratch gains so much traction right away. So the Envy came off the back of a band called Crowned King, which was a pretty big band in Canada from BC. And
oh, okay. So out west. All right.
Yeah, out west, exactly. And I joined that band it was one of those things where it was like temporarily, we knew that I would basically replace the guitarist at that time. Sure. But we wanted to give it a shot with, it was a pretty big band. I think it was like 6 people, two or three guitarists. Anyway, long story short, we moved the whole band to Toronto, where I'm from. Okay. And we recruited a drummer and a bassist, and yeah, we were touring as Crown King for just a very, very brief period of time, like a couple of months. We toured a bit, and then we just decided, listen, we need a fresh start, and we felt like the band The Envy would be kind of like, it's a bit tongue in cheek, like self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, we wanted to be the best. We wanted to be, it's funny that we ended up with Gene, but we wanted to be the best. We wanted to be like the envy of other bands.
I like it.
Yeah. So that was, we started that in 2009 was the beginning of the Envy. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we mentioned, I guess, I'm assuming Crown the King already had some momentum, domestically.
Yeah, there was a bit. Yeah, there was a bit of momentum for sure, and it was a lot of also industry contacts that when we started the Envy, a lot of Crown King fans from, I guess, the industry, they already took notice because they knew that band, and we had, I think it was a few months into forming the Envy that we were already talking to labels, and at that time was when Gene was hooking up with Universal Music Canada, and they were kind of inking the deal at that point so it was like one of those perfect timing sort of things. Like we were just a few months in with so much experience from the past. So yes, a new band, but with lots of experience.
Yeah.
But then Gene, like the record ends up on, or like whatever songs we were recording, and ends up on Gene's desk like really, really early on, man. Like really, like it might have even been 3 or 4 months in before we would have said we were ready to like even submit anything. I think our producer like secretly submitted something that maybe he wasn't supposed to, and then we found out that Universal's now interested, and oh, Gene is hooked up with Universal. So like we were like, what? We didn't even know that anyone sent anything out, right? So it was very cool. It was very cool to get that reaction so quickly. But what really was, I guess, one of those like sort of rock star stories would be, we were out on tour in Eastern Canada, this really small island called Prince Edward Island.
Yeah.
And we knew that we were going to head back to Toronto because we had to play a showcase for Universal. With like, we knew that like we got a call saying Gene was going to come to see us, but we didn't know that it was going to be like, we didn't know when exactly. So we got this phone call, and literally right after we got off the call, like you can't even make this stuff up. Right after the call that Gene was coming to this venue called the Supermarket, we, my keyboard player, Johnny would drive us around. He was like he drove our bus, he drove the van, whatever we had at the time, and we had to rent this crappy van. And literally as soon as, my singer Sean hung up the phone, Johnny put the car into reverse, and it just would not go backwards. Like he's like, oh, that's interesting. And he put it in reverse, and like it would not go backwards. So all of a sudden we have this van that like, I'm like, do any of the gears work? Like, does anything work? We got to get back. We got to play for Gene. And literally, only, what was it? Fourth gear was the only gear that moved the car forward, and you couldn't screw up because if you can't, like, you couldn't go too far because you couldn't reverse in this thing. So we literally had to drive back home to Toronto to perform for Gene.
Wow.
We literally just made it to the venue in time to set everything up. Like it was such crunch time. It was unbelievable.
That's cool. That must have been nerve-wracking to know that, like...
Yeah, you think?
Well, I mean, also, like, one of those things where it's like, okay, Gene's gonna come see you. We don't know where, we don't know when, but just be prepared. Like, how do you even wrap your head around that? Yeah,
and we have that on the table, but then we get to the venue, and so in the spirit of being a band that is envied, like our performance, we really took pride in our performance, and so we'd have like lights and a whole automated system that was working off of a computer. That was the brain. Like it would switch the lights at a specific time. So it was like a pro light show, but without having a light guy because we were low budget, right? So we had this computer that's the brain for everything. And I remember seeing someone tug on something to set up the stage, and I saw the light that was on my guitar amp, or one of the amps, sort of start tipping, and I just, in slow motion, the light smashed the computer. Like this literally like a couple of hours before Gene was getting there.
Oh my gosh.
And so our brain, the show's whole brain, basically
it just had
gone.
Oh my gosh.
Gone. So I had to basically rush to get someone, I think the sound guy had a computer in his car, get that, hope that backing the thing up would work, hope that it would run fast enough to make all the switches and stuff happen. And dude, I have no idea how it even happened, but like we pulled it off. But it's like, it's one of those things where we just blink, the show's over, and like we're at dinner with Gene Simmons. Like you don't even remember anything that happened up to that point.
That's incredible. That's
glad
you guys managed to pull it off. I mean, that was it was meant to happen for sure. People, I don't think enough people understand or appreciate, that Gene and I'm sure Paul is too, but like, Gene is a fairly open-minded guy when it comes to music.
Oh yeah. Big music fan.
More so than people realize. And especially, being the businessman that he is, he definitely sees value in beyond, bands that, may or may not sound like KISS, and KISS has certainly experimented quite a bit musically over the years as well. But yeah, he definitely has an eye for talent. I mean, of course, he will talk all day about about how he discovered Van Halen, before they were
Totally.
anything, and
Yeah.
those guys did pretty well. So
100%. Yeah, I mean, and he, speaking of this dinner that we were at after the show, we learned that very quickly because, to be honest, none of us in the band were huge KISS fans, particularly. If anything, we were more Gene Simmons fans, of the entrepreneurial side of what he
Right.
did, how he created the first band that was a brand.
Sure.
And the whole Go Big or Go Home with the production is kind of where we got that from.
Sure.
So he really loved it. And when we sat down, what we didn't realize at the time was, because we had, preconceived notions, we didn't realize how deep his love for music was, where he really appreciated, the songwriting. His favorite bands are U2 and the Beatles. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
and we learned that very quickly because when we were sitting there at dinner, that's all he was talking about were songs.
Yeah.
He was also talking about, how he wanted to, like, we didn't sign anything right there, of course, but he said, let's exchange information and then I'll send you guys an email. We'll just get started. We'll just get to work. And we didn't know what he meant by that. But I remember we just, we got an email a couple days later. And we sent him, he asked for a bunch of our lyrics. And he's like, let's just look at the lyrics and see what we can get into with the lyrics. And we were super shocked. We thought that he was going to, want to change a whole bunch of things, in a completely different category, like not with the lyrics or dig in like that. And we got into it right away. Even before we were signed, he just wanted to see how we worked together, which I really, really respected a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you could imagine how a guy like that who had been in the business as long as he has might want to take control, and people have that idea about him that he's some kind of control freak, but that's cool to know that he kind of let you guys do what you do.
Totally. He really wanted to bring that out. He really wanted us to be our version, like the best version of us, for sure. Yeah.
Which I think that's what a good producer, for lack of a better term, should do.
For sure.
I know he had an executive producer credit on the album. I don't know how hands-on he was in the studio necessarily, but I mean that is cool to hear. Was he I mean, I know the EP credit. Was he financing, or was he putting up money for it? Or?
I can't remember actually. He may have paid for it. It might have been Simmons Records may have funded the thing, or maybe it was the next release. I can't remember the logistics there, but definitely he was very, very hands-on, with the, where he thought that it would go, but it was never, this is my way or, the highway. Never, never, never. He was always I think this would be a great idea. I hear the Beatles in this song. We had this song called February on My Wall, which I think is on the EP. And, the old version sounded a little bit more like the band Muse. So more a little more heavy and, edgy. And instead he heard more of the Beatles in it. He heard more Beatles in that, and that's where we have the string arrangement. That's all Gene that had that idea. We would be sending him string arrangements, and he'd be commenting on it. And so yeah, I mean the song ended up being fantastic in my opinion with that arrangement. I still love the other one, but for you got to have different kinds of products, and so for that song. I feel like he really nailed it with that vision, for sure.
Well, plus it helps you had a keyboard player in the band, so it's probably
Exactly.
easier to recreate that live.
Oh yeah, totally, man, totally. No, it was great. I mean, and things from there moved super fast, where he, he wanted to get the deal going and get that done. And it's not like on TV where you just sign the deal right away. It took a while to negotiate and all that to make sure that everyone it was a win-win. And soon after we signed, man, I mean, that's when stuff started really rolling. We had a songwriting session booked right away with Desmond Child, who, so many hits,
legendary songwriter and producer.
Yeah, I mean, just even Bon Jovi alone, Living on a Prayer, Bad Medicine, and also KISS, by the way, I Was Made for Loving You. I mean, their first
that's right.
big single.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I mean, he also helped resurrect Aerosmith's career.
Exactly. Yeah, Dude Looks Like a Lady. So many different great songs, for sure. So yeah, so Desmond, actually that's a funny story because Desmond was the one who named me VØID. I mean,
really?
There's really, I gotta make a long story short with that.
So you need a nickname, kid.
Desmond, yeah, you know what? Desmond is a very, very great individual, very flamboyant man, and he took a liking to me very quickly. And and I was warned about his prowess. Just like be careful with that guy. I mean, when he sees something that he likes, just be careful. And listen,
Gotcha.
I love Desmond. I love Desmond for sure. Love that guy to death. But he basically, halfway through the session, he said to me, he's like, listen, because we were talking about the credits for the song, and he said, okay, so what's your name? So my singer, his name is Sean Frank, which sounds like a stage name. It just sounds like made up almost.
No,
Sean Frank.
That's his legitimate name.
Yeah, 2 first names.
That's
Sean
perfect.
Frank, right?
Yeah.
So then he's like, okay, so what about you? And I said, Steve Mastroianni. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, so hold on, how do you spell that? And he's writing it.
We're gonna change it to Eric Carr.
Yeah, exactly. And he looks at it. He's just like, nah. He's like, picture Guitar World magazine. Like the name won't even fit on the cover. And I instantly I saw it. I'm like, whoa, like totally. This is not. So I mean, I guess it's sort of like Joe Satriani. There's a lot of Italian guitar players and stuff.
Sure.
But anyway, he literally looks at me. He's like, you're dark. You're this mysterious guy, but you also like talk about like this really deep stuff and all that. He looks at me and like it's almost like a calculator, just like you see the processing. He closes his eyes and you just see his brain processing. He looks at me. He's just like, VØID, and that's it. Like, and right away I saw the whole vision. I was just like, whoa, yeah, whoa, I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah.
4 letters. He's like, yeah, Edge, Sting, Slash. You have these guys, and it's like VØID. It's got to be like a comic book. You're playing a role up there, And so anyway, so that's the beginning of VØID. There's some crazy stuff that happened later with the tattoo. I'd have to catch you another time with that story. But that's
sure.
Desmond was a very, very big deal at that time with the Gene got us working with him right away. And right after that, we found out that we got the KISS tour right after that. Like touring with KISS all over North America.
Did you guys record in Los Angeles? Was that where Desmond was, or?
So Desmond was in Hollywood Hills. We worked with him and Andreas Carlson.
That's another big name.
Yeah, a huge Swedish writer for sure.
Sure.
And so those guys were great. And yeah, man, I mean, like literally right after, I think it was 1 month later, we were getting ready to play on the hottest tour on earth. Like we played 34 shows with KISS.
No
all
kidding.
Across North America. Yeah, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Like, and that was like, so the cruise was awesome because it was just a different setting. But you got to remember, like a year before, we got off a tour of 34 shows, playing with them on huge stages every single night.
That's amazing.
Like,
I didn't even know you guys were doing all that, but it's like, to have your first major tour. I mean, I'm assuming you guys were playing arenas or at least amphitheaters by that point. That's still both. That's amazing. Yeah.
Both, dude. It was epic. It was so epic. Like there was and then they brought the tour down. We found out we were going to open for them in Mexico. And there were 4 shows in Mexico, 2 of which were in Mexico City, and they were both sold out crowds of 18,500 people. Both nights. Man. Sold out.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, super epic. And KISS is like a really heavy band they're a party band in the States, but they're a heavy metal band in Mexico. Yeah. And people were waiting outside for a long time just to see these guys. And I gotta say, man, so the first night we played in Monterrey, Mexico, and it was my birthday that night. I think it was like my 25th birthday or something. And so it was a big night. Anyway, we get out and we're expecting the same reaction we got on the American tour, where we'd come out and like we were well received. I don't know if they knew the Gene connection or anything like that, but like we were well received. We get on the Mexico stage and we get like a few notes in, and like all of a sudden I feel like something kind of like fling on my shoulder.
Oh no.
And I was just like, what the? And so I would just keep playing, thought nothing of it. And then like another, what the hell? What's going on? So they were like flinging like pesos at us, like throwing pesos at us. And listen, man, after the show, we told the production manager, we're like, Diane, like, or the production assistant, it's like, Diane, what was going on? What? They were flinging pesos at us. She said, listen, VØID, you guys are very lucky that it was only pesos. They were playing with Rammstein on a tour, I think it was a year before, And dude, like the fans hated them. They were tossing bottles. They would basically urinate in bottles, and they would fill the bottles. So obviously we're these guys who just like we're on this big tour. I was like,
that's an interesting bill, by the way. KISS and Rammstein.
Oh, totally, of course.
All right,
of course.
I would go see that show
just to see it. Yeah, just to see, right? But dude, I did not want any bottle like that, any yellow bottles coming my way.
No, thank you.
So I have to say though, it was just the first show, and then the other shows, the crowds were going wild. Maybe the first 3 rows, maybe those 3 rows were a little bit pissed and they just wanted KISS to come on. So they weren't like super receptive, but dude, like the whole arena, they just drowned everyone else out.
That's
cool. It's, like we even remember in the first 3 rows, there was like this little 3-year-old kid with KISS makeup on and he was giving us the finger. Yeah, he was giving us the finger.
Little boy.
Little boy. He's what, like, he's probably like 10 or like 11 now, but anyway. So, so anyway, so we made it through the tour alive, and it was seriously one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, it's some fan bases are weird like that when it comes to opening bands. Like I've heard that. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. Metallica fans are notoriously just terrible to the opening acts. I don't know why that is. I mean,
I think it's like it's become a thing. It's almost like participating in that ritual.
I guess. I mean, it's like, look, I love Metallica, but I like other bands too. Like it's okay. You're allowed to like more than one band.
Totally. Yeah. It was actually.
I heard that Iron Maiden fans are especially like especially just kind of looking down their nose.
I respect that, like how passionate they are for sure. Like it's almost like these bands are larger than life, and they were just waiting outside in the heat for like hours and hours. So I can see it, like I could understand it, but yeah, to experience it from the stage was just so funny. Like it was one of those situations in life where I was watching myself, like I was watching it from afar,
it's like an out of body experience.
Totally, and I was actually laughing. I kept my eyes on yellow bottles, but I was laughing for sure. Yeah,
that's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I'd be afraid to have a bad show down there. They might stick like the drug cartels on you or something.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know what would happen.
But no, the yellow bottles are still worse.
Yeah, I mean, especially down there, you don't know what's being passed around. But
yeah.
I digress.
Totally.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really cool that you guys had that level of experience even before the cruise happened.
Yeah.
Had you guys ever played on any kind of cruise before this, or?
No, man. It was like the whole thing, it was kind of like, it's got that element of novelty to it for sure. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do it, because it's like, cool, man. Like, I mean, well, okay. Also, at this point, we were super tight with Gene. And so we knew that, Gene would be, like, we'd be hanging out with Gene. And like, I think we were having like every breakfast, we would sit down with him and Shannon. And, it was their honeymoon, by the way.
That's right. Yeah, they had just, officially gotten married.
She finally pinned him down, and made it happen. She got the job done. Shannon's great, but we would have that experience. We knew that we'd be hanging out with them, and we knew that it would be kind of like, it would be a spectacle. We knew there was going to be a bunch of fans from around the world dressed
I wonder if they were filming stuff for Family Jewels.
You know what? I don't know if they filmed the first, so we were on Family Jewels I think it was a year later. I think we have the claim to fame that we're the last episode of Family Jewels.
Okay.
It was called Demon Envy was the name of the show.
I love it. You even made the title. That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Demon Envy, and the premise of the show was basically that Gene was looking for new bands in Canada. And I accused him, like I got a couple of really nice one-liners in the show, and one of them was like I accused Gene of cheating on us, and because he was checking out this other band. And anyway, the premise was Shannon had to babysit us while Gene was out looking for the other band. So you see back and forth. Gene is hating his night because he's watching this band that he's not into, and it keeps cutting back and forth to us having like the time of our lives. Like we're out with Shannon, like eating and playing pool and dancing on the bar and like the what's it called, the mechanical bull and stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah, it's like straight out of Coyote Ugly.
Exactly. Back and forth between the two nights. It was a really funny episode.
Was
so yeah,
at his house in Beverly Hills.
So there was I can't remember. No, it was actually no. We didn't do that in LA. We did it in Montreal, Canada.
Okay.
Actually. Yeah. So we were up there, and yeah, just the whole premise. I mean, like reality TV is already so ridiculous. So we did that, and then we played a show, which was filmed on the show, and yeah, it was good. It was such a fun experience, right? Like I've never done TV before like that, and to get that sort of that last episode, was
that's a huge platform, you know. I mean, even if it's especially the last one, you know, people are tuning in, so that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. I don't know if they did the cruise though. I didn't recognize any of the crew on that cruise, but yeah, man, that was, I mean, you remember, it was such a spectacle with all the different, I don't know if you dressed up at all, but like there were some guys who were convincing replicas.
No, I didn't dress up at all. I did bring a few things for like, cause it was in October, so they were having like a Halloween party that one night. I just ended up, you know, I mean, still had the short hair like I do now, but I just ended up bringing like some like suit clothes and glasses and was like, and a Superman shirt underneath to be like Clark Kent or something.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I had a good time with that, and it was funny. The funny thing about that night, I remember, it was just like a few weeks after I had met the girl who is now my wife.
Wow.
I mean, I almost ended up taking her on it, but I ended up taking my best friend on it because just. I mean, you know, it's like, look, I know he's going to appreciate this a lot more. He's going to have a lot more fun than you are. It's like, you know, she's not really familiar with KISS, and it would have just been me geeking out, you know, with, you know, around KISS stuff, and, you know, this new, you know, my new girlfriend being like, what? Like,
you couldn't be fully in your element,
no,
you know.
It wouldn't have been a good, you know, it wouldn't have been a good date, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, I remember like the thing about the like the Halloween party, and there were like these girls, you know, these really good looking girls going around, and I forget what they were working for, but they were like looked like model quality, and they were just like taking pictures with everyone. So naturally, of course, like a genius, I got my picture with them, and she was seeing that on social media. It's like, oh, okay, what's this all about?
Oh man!
And I'm like, nothing happened. It's just, you know, they were posing for pictures. That's all that happened. You know?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing.
But it was funny. And at first, I was like, okay, well now I know how crazy jealous you are. So
yeah, get that out of the way.
It back around.
Yeah, but like get it out of the way within the first few weeks of dating for sure.
Pretty much.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
But yeah, I mean, it was a trip for me, and obviously I wasn't really able to mingle with the band because they were kind of off in their own thing, which is understandable. Like, you know, you're on a boat full of KISS fans. They probably couldn't just walk around without being mobbed. Yeah. But like, I was able to like, you know, talk to the guys from Skid Row a little bit. And like, I was a huge fan of that band, and I was able to get pictures with them and pass my CD on to them. And
awesome.
I remember Snake Sabo was like, "You're very resilient. I like that."
Nice. Awesome.
And he manages bands and stuff, so I mean, of course, I never did hear from anyone, but still, I got my CD to them, and that's
totally,
you know,
totally, and you'll never forget that
all
that encounter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, that's awesome.
And yeah, so that was you know, so I mean, I imagine it just must have been such a cool experience going to the Bahamas and seeing all this other stuff, and just, you know, I remember the weather was really good. Like I don't think there was. I think there was maybe one night where it might have been a little cloudy, but I think the weather held up pretty well throughout that whole trip.
Yeah, dude, it was like through and through, like inside out. It was definitely just an easy 4 days or 3-4 days. Like it was super cool. I mean, like KISS fans. Like I might not be a massive KISS fan, but I get along really great with KISS fans because I'm obsessed with so many different things, and like to connect on that obsession, like there's a certain kind of person, like it's a certain kind of person who's obsessed, like that obsession. It doesn't really matter what you're obsessed with, you share that in common. So like, man, I mean, we got along. You know, we were chatting, and I was just like so many different people on there. It's just like, it was so easy. It's so easy to talk to people because we're all really just big geeks. Like Gene is one of the biggest geeks that I know. He just like the guy, you know, he tells the same joke to the crowd like a million times as if it was the first time. And oh man, it's so,
I mean,
so
I've
funny.
listened to so many of his interviews over the years. I could probably recite it. He's got the same rap every time. So it's
Exactly.
I mean, you know, look, he's a polarizing guy to a lot of people, but I mean, I've always appreciated, you know, what he was all about, and it never bothered me because I've seen glimpses of like who the real person is underneath the bravado and everything behind that. You know,
he knows it's ridiculous. He like, this is the thing. He's playing Gene Simmons when he's doing that, and that's what some people just don't get, right? And so when you see that and you understand the humor in that, it's fantastic. It's just like you just want to see what he does next.
And then, like, obviously he gets it because obviously, you know, because he has Craig Gass on there, you know, who just plays it up completely. And
no, he's got a great sense of humor for sure. It's very dry, but it's he's a great guy.
You're a powerful and attractive man.
Exactly. To everybody, every single meeting that we were ever in, that's what he would say for sure. Yeah. It's really fun.
He's a guy I would love to have like a conversation with, like we're having now.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling like underneath all the bravado, I feel like, you know, talking about, you know, getting the real Gene Simmons.
Well, for case in point, actually, just last week. So, as you know, I have a 2-month-old daughter, and congratulations.
About yours. I know we're both relatively new dads. We've been
we're these rockstar dads that are trying to figure it out and have an identity crisis, changing diapers while like hearing rock tunes in our head. Anyway, so last week, my wife shows me or sends me this little photo shoot that she did with my daughter, like upstairs. Like I'm working on a bunch of stuff down here, and my wife's upstairs like having a photo shoot with my 2-month-old daughter. Anyway, long story short, she has sends like all these, like she has a towel rolled up like as if she just like got out of the shower or whatever. Like the baby has like the towel rolled up and she's making different faces. One of the faces, her tongue is like stuck, like sticking out a lot, right? Anyway, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna send that to Gene. So speaking of the real Gene, I send him the email saying, hey Gene, you know, hope all is well, and I just wanted to let you know that my daughter hit a major milestone today. She may not know her name, but she knows how to stick her tongue out like the master. And anyway, he sends me a message back like 10 minutes later. He's just like, ha ha ha, so cute.
Nice.
And that's it.
That's awesome that you still keep in touch with him after all these years.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's like here you go, honey. Let's send this off to, you know, Grandpa Gene or whatever.
You know what, man? You know what's funny is my wife is definitely not a KISS fan. I don't even know if she knows any of their songs, but when I told her about that, she was definitely starstruck. Like she was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe Gene Simmons thinks our baby's cute."
Yes,
for sure.
That is cool. So let's go back to what happened after the cruise, because that was where we last kind of crossed paths, and you know, I continued to listen to your music over the years. Following the cruise, you know what else became of the Envy?
So I mean, there's so much that happened after that, and I'll obviously condense the story for sure. Maybe there like we continue this at some point in the future, but
maybe absolutely.
But it's but the you know, the music industry is very, very interesting place, and at that particular time it was very strange, and this is all new to us. Like we had record deals in Mexico, US, Canada, and Gene as our quarterback, and he opened up a lot of doors. And basically what we were like, it was there's so many cooks in the kitchen, man, so many. And you know, hindsight's always 20/20, but like, I mean, if anybody's listening and I was giving advice to someone who's starting a band or is in a band, is you gotta do it yourself. It's all you, and all that a label ever does and has ever done is just push and put resources behind a moving vehicle. You have to get the vehicle moving yourself always. Okay. So, and we kind of still had that. We come from the generation where it's still like, I'm going to sign a record deal and it's a superhighway. Like this is like, they're going to take care of us, right? So we always kind of had that sort of allure there with that. And it wasn't even Gene. Gene was more of an advocate than anything. It was the labels that they would say like, we need a hit or we need this or that. And we're looking at the charts, dude. Seriously, we're looking at the Billboard charts that they're asking us to like write songs for. And there were 0 bands, not even just 1 week, every week for the time that we had those conversations with them. Zero. So they're asking us to do basically an impossible feat. And so it really was frustrating. We wrote a whole bunch of songs, some stuff that looking back on it now, it's kind of like, wow, what were we thinking? Like we were lost. But some stuff that was like, whoa, I can't believe not that many people heard this stuff because this is crazy stuff. So anyway, it was very frustrating. And I have to say, like, just sort of changing gears a little bit here is that we were all problem solvers, and we probably would have figured it out, whether it was like getting off of the label and doing things ourselves or whatever it might be. Like we belonged on the road, and so we probably would have just kept touring. But what ended up happening was my father actually got really sick, and I was faced with like that crossroads in life where it's like, what is the move here? And so, you know, truthfully, it wasn't that long of a decision or that hard of a decision. I mean, my pops, he got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and like, you know, it's a crushing blow. Yeah. But it was basically like, listen, guys, like, I've got to take care of my dad here. That's what's going on here. And, you know, we were coming, it wasn't like there was so much momentum, and then I left or anything. It was more like things cooled off and we were planning on regrouping and figuring out what to do for the year, making a plan. And when that happened, it was kind of like, all right, indefinite hiatus. Like, I love you guys. You guys are my family. They love me. We're family, but we gotta put this thing on hold, and I got to take care of my dad. So, you know, obviously, very eventful time and very like strange time for sure. But unfortunately, he passed 2 short years after that. But I had 2 incredible years with my dad that I'll never ever forget, regret, anything like that. I would, if I had to make the decision at any point, I would do the same thing again. And, you know, and, yeah, I'm a strong, like, you know, family first, guy. And so, yeah, that was definitely tough because it was an identity crisis. I had to, like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, went from like huge stages, 18.5 thousand people, you know, rubbing shoulders with celebrities and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, now I'm like in the emergency room every couple of days, like, and now I'm a caregiver, you know, all of a sudden, you know, it rattled me. It wasn't about me though, right? So I just had to kind of deal with it. So anyway, to make a long story short, with that era of my life, I had a great time as a caregiver, taking care of my dad, because my dad was always my biggest fan. The whole reason why I was even playing music was because he bought me my first drum kit. Like, I was actually originally a drummer, and he bought me my first drum kit, and he had to endure the drums. He loved it. He couldn't get enough of it. So it's like, okay, this guy's been my biggest fan. Like, I got to help this guy, you know, in any way that I can. And so I totally did. While I was taking care of him, I couldn't just sit still. Like, it's not like everything was super eventful or anything. Sometimes there was a lot of downtime where I was waiting for the treatment to work or whatever it might be. And I figured, you know what? If in my 20s I was a rock star, I'm gonna now in my 30s I'm gonna help people become rock stars. So I ended up starting two different platforms. One called Rockstar Mind.
Yes, I've been looking to ask you about that. I saw that on your profile.
Awesome. Yeah, Rockstar Mind is basically I help people unleash their inner rock star. Right now, the main mechanism is through guitar. Like, for people who want to learn how to play guitar, I help them to not only learn how to play, like, that's great and all, but take it to the next level where it's like, all right, so you are going to, if you want to play an open mic, I'm going to help you to play in public. I'm going to help you play your wife's favorite song for her 50th birthday. Like, not just like, here's how to play some chords. It's more like, let's give you a rock star breakthrough. So that there is, that was like my baby, because that's like taking all my experience and putting that, and offering it to people who, you know, they think they're the furthest thing from a rock star, right? So to give them that experience, so huge. But then on the back of that, is an organization, a fundraising initiative called VØID Cancer, which I was inspired by my father's situation, and so I basically take proceeds from sales of Rockstar Mind, and I help to create new programs for patients and caregivers. So because like, dude, it was tough, and for some people it's even worse than what we experienced, and so to help them to either escape from that for a little bit, like if they play some guitar, or just to know that I can contribute to some programs that help them and educate them, like I've been educated through different organizations. I was totally for that. So yeah, man, I mean, I couldn't sit still, and I felt like I had to give back and share all of the cool things that happened from the past with my audience.
For sure, man. Well, I mean, I definitely appreciate that. My mom is a cancer survivor, so
amazing.
Yeah, so that's really good work you're doing. I like the Rockstar Mind thing too. That's cool. It's going beyond just being a guitar instructor, but also like a performance coach, which is really cool. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't really know what to do, how to take that next step, if that's what they want to do. Maybe some people might just want to learn how to play and just to know how to do it, which is cool too. But like, especially like younger kids when they're starting out, they don't necessarily know how to take that first step and about what it's like to be in a band and that sort of thing.
And you know what? I totally agree. I totally agree. And what's ironic though is that the guys who I'm actually serving are actually Gene's age, my dad's age. Like they're like in their 50s and 60s, and these are guys who at heart they're 9 years old, but they've lived a life where they never thought they'd be able to play, but they've always wanted to.
Yeah.
So I have to say, and maybe it was some kind of like coping mechanism or something, but to help somebody who, and some of these guys, by the way, are also cancer survivors, and so they, so to have been through so much and have such a love for music, to witness them being lit up and feel like a rock star when they've lived a whole life wanting to do something special like that. For me, that's just like, that's as exciting to me as playing Mexico City, and dodging pesos. Like that's as exciting to me because knowing that I'm making an impact on somebody so huge.
That is awesome, man. That's, it's a really cool way to use the experience you've had and to give back to people. And, that's a good thing, man. And I've no doubt that your dad would be proud of that sort of thing.
Thank
when it
you,
comes
man.
to that. And one last thing I wanted to touch on before we close up here. Something that I read a couple years ago that Gene said, and obviously being a younger artist that Gene has worked with, I'd be really interested to get your take on it. A couple years ago, as I'm sure you're aware, Gene did an interview conducted by his son Nick, and he basically said something to the effect of that rock music is dead, and that it's finally been killed. And he's said other things to this effect over the years, and a lot of it is like blamed on technology and this and that and the state of the industry. But I mean, I definitely know how that made me feel to hear him say that, to say that rock is finally dead and this and that, and that new bands don't stand a chance. I mean, what's your take on stuff like that? Having been a guy who's worked with him and been like sort of a protege of his, when a guy like him says something like that, how does that make you feel? Yeah,
well, I remember vividly when I first saw it, and this was after my whole experience with him, and so the first thought, truthfully, that crossed my mind was, Gene is at it again. That's number one, that this guy knows how to play the system for sure and get attention. For sure. He is a master marketer. So that was the first thing that popped in my head. And then it got me thinking, like, yeah, I mean, definitely rock was dead on the charts that we were looking at. But, then the third thought that came in my head was just like, listen, music is so accessible right now. Music is something different to everybody, and people don't worship one band anymore. People have all these different songs at their fingertips, and some of them are electronic. Some of them are rock. Some of them are country. It's more about the song, which is a very cool time to be alive because it's more about the song, and that's got to hold up on a playlist amongst other songs. Yeah. So yes, there are still bodies of work like albums and EPs, but it's a different sort of thing. And you have to be open-minded because it's not like you're going to be left behind if you don't if you can't beat them, join them, right? So like rock is not dead. There are so many different rock bands that still have fans that and new fans too. I mean, like, it's not like, it's only casino bands that sign the deal for the casino, like the Legacy, and then their old fans watch. No, there's bands that are still maybe some bands lean a little bit more pop. They're rock and pop. Like Imagine Dragons is totally crushing it. Sure. There's all these different bands. So I don't believe that rock is dead. I think if anything, actually, rock is more of an attitude. And so we've seen rock in different genres, whether it's pop or rap or rocks. The concept of rock star is more of an attitude, like a punk, just take no prisoner and I do what I want,
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot in modern country music.
Yeah,
they take a lot. It's just. I mean, on one hand, I like it, but on the other hand, it makes me a little angry. It's everyone wants to be rock stars, but no one wants to play rock music. What the hell's going on?
No, I know, I hear you. By the way, because we're also picturing man, it was so great, Nirvana rocking out, or that raw distortion. It's and that it still exists. It's still there. Yeah. It's kind of presented on the plate in a different way. So to answer your question, I think that it was mostly a PR stunt. And I mean, I think that maybe he was a little bit discouraged that he couldn't exactly pull it off. But Gene knows what he's doing. I wouldn't put anything past that guy. He knows what he's doing. So he knew what he when he wrote it like that, he knew what he was doing. He knew it would cause a panic for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's tough love in a way. It was one of those things, and I know that he and Paul have, had a very hard time with the digital revolution and everything. A lot of the older generation has, because they look at that as stealing music, and I definitely understand that argument. I think it's just one of those things, you can't stop technology. Oh. It's just you gotta adapt with it. And
luckily, those guys have their big business is actually not music. Their big business is spectacle performance and merch. If anything, dude, they were crushing in merch. Every night, what they were pulling in on merch. So that's really the songs are more the magnet to get people in, and it's the performance and the merch that's the business right there.
For sure. Those guys were pioneers in merchandising and licensing. No question about that. I know. Because I could tell, me reading that article, it's I had a feeling, and there were some points in there that I agreed with, but, it was one of those things, I felt personally heartbroken reading that, because part of me was why, is he right?
Of course. I mean, it's a threat. It's a bit of a threat to our, our identity.
Sure. I mean, and just coming from him, I mean, to me, that's that's like hearing, Santa Claus.
There's no Santa. Yeah, exactly. Your dad
say that Christmas is canceled, and that's all bullshit. It's
exactly.
I mean, that broke my heart. It's no, Gene, why would you say that? But
totally.
I mean, I definitely understand where he's coming from, and it's I definitely understand that mindset. But it's one of those things. It's you can't. I refuse to give up on it just yet.
For sure, definitely. Definitely.
Because a lot of people still like the music. It's just, how it's presented and the platforms aren't as what they used to be. So, you just got to keep plugging away and hope that, things change, or that someone helps make a few changes. You never know.
Totally. But I'll tell you this. I don't think that there's ever going to be, and obviously I could be wrong, but just with the platform and how accessible music is, I don't think there's ever going to be a grandiose sort of maybe Coldplay was the last band that took the world by storm, where everyone was paying attention. I think that there's, yes, I know for a fact that there are rock fans in the world, but what the rock band has to do now, their responsibility now, is to find those fans and build a tribe. And really, you only need 1,000 diehard fans to really make to get all the good stuff happening to be a successful band, because they tell one person or whatever, that whole thing. with 1,000 diehards. But basically, it's not the same thing where like Nirvana comes out and everyone's rattled. Like,
Yeah.
it's bands come out and it's just put out good music, serve your fans, like really nurture your fan base. And when you nurture your fan base, people will share your music, and don't be precious with it. Like, it's okay. Music's free. That's where it should be. You'll get some money, but that's not where the real money ever was.
Yeah.
It's in the merch and it's in the touring. And, basically, when you find your tribe, just keep nurturing them and keep growing your tribe, and you will sell places out. Like, you will sell places out. It's just not going to be like what it was before. That dream, like, that's done, because that's pre-Napster, like, you know, it's just not going to happen.
For sure. I mean, you know, I do see, you know, bands like Avenged Sevenfold who are doing what they do, and while they're not necessarily, you know, household names to everybody, they're certainly making, you know, big names for themselves.
Yeah, they're huge for sure.
Even without a ton of radio support, which is crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, there's definitely hope out there.
There's hope, buddy.
For sure. So with VØID Cancer and with Rockstar Mind, it sounds like you got a lot going on. It sounds like maybe the Envy might not be done. I don't know. We had talked earlier, before the interview, that you guys were sort of on hiatus. I didn't know what the status of that band was.
Okay, so the Envy. So basically, so taking care of my dad for those 2 years, we were not playing or making any music, and then, but still keeping in touch. I mean, those guys are my brothers. But then, after that, for a couple more years, because I got so heavily into these organizations, it meant that I had to get heavily into marketing. And so I went down a path where I was like kind of like this rock star dude, consulting different companies on their marketing and doing all this different stuff. And that was fun and all. But, you know, it went on a little bit too far. My love of music just took over, and I ended up hooking back up with my singer, Sean. And, cause he never stopped. He actually started a successful, electronic career where he was taking a lot of that rock energy, and he was putting it, actually, speaking of which, he's like translating that into the electronic world. And so he got a lot of notoriety in like Europe and also North America. Anyway, yeah, we ended up hooking up again, and now I'm actually just doing all the stuff. Like we're writing songs, and we're right now in Canada. One of our songs, "Addicted," is number 14 in the top 40, which is super cool. Super cool. And and at the same time, Rockstar Mind is rolling, and yeah, I'm super grateful that I get to help people and also still kind of finish the unfinished business that I started with my music career, you know?
Very cool, man. Well, yeah, I mean, definitely want to get people to check out Rockstar Mind and VØID Cancer, and even go back and listen to the Envy stuff. TheEnvyMusic.com is the website. There are a few cool things you have on YouTube as well. I remember a couple years ago seeing you guys doing this really unique cover of Somebody That I Used to Know by OTA.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny because next week I think we're writing some songs with that band Walk Off the Earth, who had they had the famous cover where it was 5 people playing one guitar, and when we saw that yeah, it was huge, right? And when we saw that, Sean messaged me. And he's like, hey, so this video's huge. Wouldn't it be cool if there was one guy playing 5 guitars? And so like I hibernated for 5 days and arranged this whole thing, and like slept for 2 days after that because my brain was fried.
Oh my gosh.
But it was it was lots of fun. You know what? That's where you're gonna find the best Envy stuff is if you go to YouTube and you just search the Envy. There's a couple of gems on there that I'm really proud of, for sure.
Cool, man. Well, where can people find your your 2 ventures right now, your 2 different foundations?
So rockstarmind.com is where you can find everything related to just, guitar is really just the vehicle. Like it's you want to be a rock star, and like I'm gonna help you do it. It just so happens right now it's gonna be through guitar. So yeah, rockstarmind.com, and then VØID Cancer, KISS.com is where you can watch the video, see more of the story. Actually, you get remember I was telling you about Desmond Child naming me Void. There's a crazy tattoo story that I go into depth in on that video, and it's spooky stuff, man. Very, very eerie, cosmic stuff of how, I don't know, life is just really funny sometimes. So, so if you want to check that out, VØIDCancer.com is the website.
Great stuff. Yeah. Void, I definitely want to have you back on one of these days to talk more stuff. This has been just a great conversation, and hey, if you guys ever make your way through Florida again, please let me know. I would love to come see you.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks once again to Void from the Envy. Really great guitar player, songwriter, and the Envy is a really great band. I suggest you go out and check out their stuff if you get the chance. And I also love what he's doing with Rockstar Mind and with VØID Cancer. Obviously, really a cause that's very close to his heart. And it was really cool for me to reconnect with him after all these years. And just a strange twist of fate how I ended up on that first KISS Kruise. One of the best experiences of my life. And the fact that I managed to make a cool contact with these guys is really, really cool. So after we were done towards the end of the podcast, I recorded a few extra minutes of conversation that Void and I had about a few different things, which I ended up listening back to, and it's really cool stuff. So I might post that as sort of a part 2 or a bonus track to this. But yeah, it's definitely a cool little piece of conversation that I might add to to what we already have here. But I'm glad that I had Void on, and hopefully I'll have him on again in the future. Maybe the Envy will reunite in the future, maybe not. I don't know, but if they do, that would be really, really cool because they're a really great band. As far as some upcoming events, for me, Vertebraker will be playing on Friday, June 22nd at The Haven in Winter Park, featuring our old friends Auditory Armory, some new friends of ours, Grim Ghost, and Cruel Curses from St. Pete. Interesting thing about Cruel Curses, their drummer is a guy named Brian Scott, who I was in a band called Zebrageist with many, many years ago. Brian is a great friend of mine, and I hope to have him on a future episode of this podcast pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure that will happen sooner rather than later. In the meantime, that is it for this episode of the Phoenix Report. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at JackXConnor. Make sure you like me on Facebook at facebook.com/JackConnorMusic. Feel free to check out my band, Vertebraker, at facebook.com/VertebrakerBand. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, make sure you email me at jackconnorpodcast@gmail.com or tweet me with the hashtag Phoenix Report. If you're listening to this on YouTube or iTunes, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, go back and listen to all the other episodes. Thank you for listening. This has been the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor. We'll see you again soon. Bye.